Can everyone understand me, alright? Yeah? I have no subtitles, you know, so I'm from Bridgend, Bridgend Valleys. I got into mental health for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons was in 2007 there was a lot of young people were taking their lives. It was a big media storm, and that was another reason why. But my background is youth work. That youth club actually helped me as a kid, and saved me from a lot of trouble. But like I said, I didn't know nothing about mental health. At 28, didn't have a clue. I was one of these people, how can anyone get depressed? So I was, come on, let's get on about it. And it wasn't until my wife went into labour, and after 22 hours labour, I remember the doctors come rushing in, and they said, Mr. Williams, your wife's got an emergency C-section. And it was a tone of their voice and the way they looked at me. I had my first ever panic attack. I went into the emergency C-section. I don't really talk about much about this part, but what I will say is what I saw, things that happened in that time, it did really affect me later on. But it wasn't until my wife went on to have severe post-natal depression, where she should have a mother and baby unit, and that's the one thing I campaigned for in Wales. I campaigned for all parents, so I started the campaign for the mother and baby unit in Wales, because all I will say is she wasn't safe, and I had to give up work for 6 months to look after my wife in 2004. What happened then, I didn't know nothing about mental health. I couldn't tell my friends, couldn't tell my family, I couldn't tell my wife how I was starting to feel looking after her, because I didn't want to impact on her mental health either. A lot of dads I speak to, it's the same. But then, about 3 to 4 months after my son was born, then I was starting to get really depressed myself then. I remember using drink to cope with all this. My personality totally changed since my son come along. And what I will say is I didn't get an overwhelming feeling of love for my son initially, because I was just relieved they were both alive. And that's the thing, a lot of fathers don't get that bond. And eventually, because I was off work for 6 months, I really bonded with my son. Eventually got to the point where my mother-in-law had to come to live with us, which I'm still getting counselling for now, if I'm honest. But on a serious note, there's a lot of families that haven't got the support like I did. Seriously, they haven't got that support that I did eventually. And like I said, 2005, we were worried about social services getting involved, loads of factors why. And I didn't know at the time that I was suffering from what I know now as post-natal depression, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on. So, and what I will say is post-natal depression, now PTSD is an anxiety disorder, either witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. And there's nothing worse than seeing your wife, somebody you love, go through trauma, and also thinking his son's going to die as well. And a lot of these men do get nightmares like that, eventually. But it wasn't until years later that another trauma happened in my life, where my mother was diagnosed with cancer. I lost my grandfather in weeks, and eventually I had a full breakdown. And I know I got 15 minutes, I can go on and on about my story, but I want to get through all these slides. But what I will say is it wasn't until I had the counselling and it took a breakdown to realise what I went through early on. But it was after the breakdown, after 8 weeks, I was on medication, I had counselling, and it was after speaking to a guy in the gym, and I said, I'm making all the weights today. He said, yeah, it's fine. He said, I got to go to NHS prams. I said, what's NHS prams? He said, oh, my wife had post-natal depression. I said, no way. My wife had post-natal depression too. And talking side by side, which is a big factor, which I get a lot of information off of dads, I was finding that Brian, he actually had a breakdown. He lost his business, he lost his house, he lost everything because he wasn't supported around this time. And this was in 2010 now. I thought, that's strange, it can't be still going on here. So I said a father's reaching out. A father's reaching out was only to support fathers with their wives or partners with post-natal depression. That's all it was. But when I was talking to dads and they were opening up more, and before I got into mental health, I was into sales, so I was really good into communication. And I was finding that these dads were suffering from trauma, antenatal depression, and anxiety, which we don't talk about. There's fathers, what I will say is that I've had a traumatic experience, first time round with the first baby, and then the anxiety in the antenatal period, now they're going to go into a labour ward and experience what they did the first time round, because they weren't debriefed or talked about. And then the turning OCD, but the behaviours around this, and this is what we got to this is why I get the point across. Postnatal depression in men can look different than it does in women. So you'll find a lot of drink, there's drugs, abuse, there's even anger, and in extreme cases I've come across violence than it wasn't before. There's loads of factors. And like myself, my personality totally changed during the postnatal period. I remember punching a sofa and busting my hand. I was trying to fight with bouncers, not because I had a chance to beat them up, because I wanted somebody to hit me to take this emotion, these feelings I had in my head, not for myself harm. So loads of factors. And if anyone knows me, I've never been so angry during that time. I'm so laid back normally, but my personality totally changed during the postnatal period, which is the first 12 months. And the amount of relationships are breaking up because there's no support for both parents is absolutely terrible. Sometimes it's only the dad who's suffering, which will impact on the mother's mental health, and as we know, the developmental child can be affected if unsupported. So to raise awareness, I had to just get myself out there, really. So we started going on TV and radio and explain what it is. And even, I don't know if you heard a story about a father who actually took his life when he had postnatal depression. It was only last week, it came out in the media. He was diagnosed with postnatal depression and he took his life. You know, and I will say is the biggest killer in men under 45 is suicide, yet we don't do any screening, no assessments, and asking dad how he's feeling about his mental health. And dad's got a history of depression and anxiety like mums. So we should be screening all parents around this time. So, started educating people about it, and obviously the Royal Family talk about father's mental health, and then going into campaigning. And like I mentioned, I campaign all parents, not just fathers. And did you know there's no mention of the word fathers on CG 1929 guidelines? No mention in 57 pages. I get fathers who want specialist perinatal mental health support, and because there's no, they can't access these services, which impacts, like I said, on the mother's mental health. So I set up a how are you hashtag, how are you dad? I want everyone to have a conversation with the father. And some health visitors and professionals, I know it's overstretched, I worked in the field, but sometimes if dad's in work, give him a ring to say, how's your mental health? You know, it starts asking a question about his mental health as well as mum's. So it was an idea come on, and 3 years ago I set up International Father's Mental Health Day, because this is not just a UK concern, it's a global concern. It's a global concern. We need to start talking about father's mental health as well. It's always a day after Father's Day, because not every father's happy on Monday. That's the logic behind it. So I worked with Dr. Jane Handy, and she was the one who trained me up 5-6 years ago, because obviously I want to know more about obviously perinatal mental health. That's why we got to talk about perinatal mental health, not just postnatal depression. And she writes, I tell her what the dads, and we reference it up, and she puts it in publication. She's the one who does all the writing. So like I mentioned, there's no mention of the word fathers on CG 199, nice guidelines, nothing. So we've known this since 91. We've known this. First time fathers may particularly be prone to depression. We've known this since 91. But are we doing enough? And like I mentioned, PTSD is an anxiety disorder, absolutely witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. And that's grandparents everywhere. And some of these, as you probably know, what is PTSD? Some of the like flashback nightmares, images. And that's, especially nightmares I was getting. I was waking up thinking my wife had died, her baby died. There's loads of factors. And these are some of the stories I've heard. I'd be lucky to speak to maybe 2,000 fathers via social media, support groups, not just in the UK but overseas. You know, we don't talk about the cultures of fathers. We've got to talk about everything about father mental health. And this is the research. Anxiety is actually higher in dads than depression. And we know what anxiety does lead into sometimes. 2016, so it's starting to come out. And these are the signs and symptoms of father's postnatal depression. You may as well copy and paste that onto from a mother's postnatal depression, because the symptoms are just the same. But sometimes the behaviour does look different in dads and does mums, like I mentioned earlier on. Overworking, avoidance, paranoia, avoiding family members, children, can't cope with it. We've got to think, why is that dad behaving in that way? Rather than judging him and saying, oh, he's not good enough to be a dad. We've got to think, why is he behaving in that certain way after the baby's been born? Or before the baby's been born too. So this is some of the dad stories I've come across. Obviously, change the names. So 1 in 10 dads suffer from post-natal depression. 2004, that was the biggest research study. But I feel it's higher because it was 1 in 10 for years for mums. But when we started to have more awareness and actually screen mums and do the assessment on mums, we found it's a lot higher than 1 in 10. Because a lot of dads will get diagnosed with depression or anxiety after the postnatal period. When you look back, if it was screened and assessed, that would have been one of the reasons why they were depressed. And they go into other services. And the thing is, early prevention actually saves money and lives. So I'm just going to go really quickly with the slides because I've just had I'm on a yellow card at the moment. Drinking too much. That was my coping skill, drinking too much. And paternal OCD, some dads are getting these thoughts and they'd rather avoid bath for the baby or for various factors. And this is one of the studies, one of the fathers, I don't like to use case studies, this is a real father who actually, thought he was, he had images of bashing the baby's head against the bath. But he had OCD, And as we know, there's never really been a case of somebody with that thought wanting to do that. But I can talk about it another day. And actually, up to 50% of dads will get depression looking after a mum with postnatal depression. Up to 50%. So my argument is, okay, if dad is struggling or the father's only struggling, that's got to be 50% for mums too. Will actually get depression looking after a partner. And young dads, we got to think about young dads. There's a YouTube. I really ask you to look at that. It's on YouTube. It is still a face experiment. You got my dads as well. So, like I said, fatherhood has totally changed. There's more single dads bringing up their children than ever before. There's more stay-at-home dads than ever before. My father's mind has totally changed from years ago. The social media side of it now is putting pressures on fathers. Fathers got to be more involved than ever before. Yet we're not changing with the times. We've got to think of all parents now. And same-sex couples. Social media has a huge part to play with these dads I talk to and how they feel depressed. They feel not good enough. And like mums, they feel they're not good enough to be dads, like mums do. I'm not good enough to be a mother. Dads feel like that too. I certainly did, because I thought I should be having this overwhelming feeling of love for my son, but I certainly didn't during that time. And like I mentioned, young dads, this is one of my other passions, coming from the youth sector, and seeing how suicide affects communities. And the biggest killer of men under 45 is suicide. The biggest killer, just remember that. The biggest killer of men under 45 is suicide. Yet, we haven't got no support, no assessments for dads. And that is wrong. It's absolutely terrible when you think of it. The biggest killer of men under 45 is suicide. Yet, we're not screening or any support for dads at the moment. And this is a landmark case where a father was actually diagnosed in 2011 with postnatal depression. And unfortunately was cleared for killing his baby as well. So, safeguarding issues around it as well, as we know. And it's about educating the media. Coming from what the media did to my community about suicide and young people in Bridgend, we need to start educating the media. Because my son is thriving now. Both of us have, as we know, postnatal depression. And he's thriving. I actually got a fantastic bond with my son. It's great, fantastic. And I want other fathers to share their stories out there when they feel comfortable to as well, 500,000 men took their life globally last year. 500,000 billion. How many of them are dads? Only last week we had the first story where the father had post-natal depression, and it went on to take his life. This lady I campaigned with, she lost a partner when she was 2 months pregnant. He went out the door and took his life. But she said he had post-natal depression on the first baby, and this unexpected baby comes along the second time. He just couldn't cope with it, and he walked out the door and took his life. And this is a report I did go back in 2015 with the NCT. There was 38% of fathers are concerned about their own mental health, and 73% of dads are concerned about their partner's mental health. Because all I was concerned about was my wife getting well. I didn't think about myself, to be honest with you. It only caught up to me years later. And you can see why, some of the factors. And just so you know, because you haven't heard my full story, there's a book coming out in July as well. So. Thank you, guys.